And that's what the Nesiv Shalom is saying, that the greatest miracle was the Pach Echad Shemun. The fact that when all was destroyed and you're going through the rubble, but Hashem made sure that there's one piece of purity that remained so we can rebuild what was lost to us. And this is why I love Nesiv Shalom. We're not just learning about the past. He's making it practical. V'chein b'chayei haprat. Every one of us in our lives. There are those times that we go through, people go through times that we feel like it's over. There's no coming back. I hit an all-time new low. I've never felt so distant from Hashem. I feel like Hashem is not in my life, not interested in my davening, not interested in my learning, and I feel all alone. I feel like what Klal Yisrael felt as a general feeling, a person could feel like that. It is on you. Your job at that point is to believe be'emunah shlema with full faith. She'adayin yesh boy kusta d'chiyusa she'evan pina lebinyan mechudash. You have to believe that inside of you is the black box that never gets destroyed in the airplane. You have a black box. You have a kusta d'chiyusa, a kernel of life. That is the evan pina. You know, when you start building a building, you start with an Evan Pina, you start with a cornerstone. And on that is where your binyan, your new building will be rebuilt. There is no such thing as lights out. There is no such thing as game over. I've seen it. I've seen people who shmad, who are atheists, who are full of tattoos. And from there, they found their kusta d'chiyusa, their pach echad sheman, and today they're frum, they're erlich, and they're probably better than us. And better than they would have been if they didn't do all of that. They're real. They're so real. They've built a life for themselves. One of them told me, every time I put on tefillin, I feel like I'm connected to Hashem. I don't feel that way. He didn't feel that way before he was off. I'm not encouraging people to go off. We have to pray that we never struggle. But from the struggle can come such a rebirth, a re-understanding of your relationship with Hashem. Somebody who also went off the derech afterwards, he got married, he told me, when I put on my talis, I feel like Hashem is hugging me. I'm jealous of what he became. And that came because he was utterly destroyed, but not totally destroyed. There was the kusta d'chiyusa. All he had left was that pach echad shemen tahar. He didn't have any more mixed irvuv of toiv and ra. He had all ra and one piece of pure toiv. And he rebuilt from that pure toiv. And this is what it says from the Baal Beis Avram. Beautiful. It says in Tehillim, oid ma'at ve'ein rasha. Which means, oid ma'at, a little more, and there's not going to be any more evil. He says, oid ma'at, b'chol rasha mi Yisrael, yesh oid ma'at shaboy einay rasha. Isn't that beautiful? Oid ma'at ve'ein rasha. In every rasha, you should know there's a little bit in there. There's a little bit in him that is not a rasha. And what is that? That's the kusta d'chiyusa, the kernel of life. You should write this down. Kusta d'chiyusa. I have a kusta d'chiyusa. We should make T-shirts. I have a kusta d'chiyusa. I have an internal black box. I have a pach echad shemen tahar chaysamay, which is sealed with the seal of Hashem, that will never ever be tainted in any way. In every rasha, there's an oid ma'at that is not a rasha, because that is the kusta d'chiyusa that Hashem protects, and from there you can build from start, from the fresh. It says that when Yaakov came in, that Yitzchak smelled the reach of his clothing. Al toymar bigdov ela boigdov. Yitzchak was smelling not the clothing, but boigdov, the rebels. Kigon yakum ish tzoris v'yoshev meshisa. K'di'isa shaman yanim. We'll go over there and we'll deal with that over there where he talks about it. He smelled these rebels of Klal Yisrael, that from the lowest level of rebellion they brought out K'vayt Shemayim. V'chein ma'aseh de Rebbe Eliezer ben Dudaria muva b'Gemara. Everybody knows the famous Gemara, that there was someone named Elazar ben Dudaria. Shelo hiniach avera, he did not give up on any zayna in the world. Today it's a lot easier, but in those days it was much harder. There was a lot of traveling involved. And he went, and he was such a Baal Taiva, and he was mamish at the bottom of the world. He got to such a matzav of tachlus hashiflus, the ultimate of lowness. You couldn't see him if you interviewed him. You wouldn't find any bit of good. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, awakened in him the kusta, the chiyusa, the kernel of life. And he and Yosef Meshisa and Yaakov Mishtzroiris, if you look at the stories from the worst people, they ended up becoming Baal Tshuva Gemurim on a higher level than they would ever have reached if they would have been a regular Joe, a regular Yassel learning, a regular yeshiva bacher. And that's what it says. Yitzchak, he smelled the smell of Boigdov, of the rebels, the rebellions. Oysam Boigdim, those rebels shahayu behem oid ma'at ve'ein rasha. Those rebels that they had hardly anything left in them. Oid ma'at ve'ein rasha. They were so rasha that there was only an oid ma'at that was not a rasha. Umikoichoi kitshu shem shemayim berega ha'achroin. But from their internal oid ma'at, that was not a rasha. They were mekadesh shem shemayim berega ha'achroin in the last minute. V'nis alu, when they went up l'madregois el yoinois ba'olam el yoin, they went up to the holiest, highest level. We know that when Rebbe Elazar ben Dodaya died out of grief over his low matziv, the Baskol came out and he said, Rebbe Dudari, he was called Rebbe. He got the title of Rebbe, which Reb Meir was called Rebbe, out of his holiness and purity that he lived his whole life. He was able to reach a level that a regular person would not be able to reach. And guess what? It's not just him. It wasn't just Yaakov Mishtzroiros. It wasn't just Yosef Meshisa. It wasn't just Rebbe Elazar ben Dodaya. B'meshech hadoyos, throughout our generations, hayu rabbis kahena. There were many like this. Yehudim she'agiu l'matzav shel heder. There were Jews that reached a matzav of heder, of complete, no Yiddishkeit left, and looked mamish like a guy. But then it became revealed, the kusta d'chiyusa, the kernel of life, nekudas hachiyos sheneseres bahem, the nekuda of spiritual life that was inside of them, umikoicha, and from that koyach, yotzu v'nechlatzu mishvam atzavim, they reached out and they were saved from their shval hamatziv. K'mesuper, like it's told on Yehudim shahiyu shoim gemurim. Many stories. I actually wrote it down, and I believe in GPS. You have to read it. The story, it's brought down that there was a Yid that behaved mamish like a mafioso, and he used to torture all the Jewish frum people. He used to break their windows and demand money. He hated Yiddishkeit. He hated Judaism. He hated Hashem. He hated everything. One day the Nazis rounded up all the Jews and brought them into the shul, and everybody knew what that means. Usually it means they're going to burn down the entire shul and kill men, women, and children in the shul. Suddenly the doors opened up. The Nazis brought in this Bulvan, this Shegitz, what looks to be like the biggest Shegitz in the world, this Jew who was machalel everything and hated Yiddishkeit. They brought him in front of everybody. They opened up a Sefer Torah, they threw it on the floor. They opened it up, they unrolled it, and they told him to urinate on the Sefer Torah. Anybody who knew this man and the way that he behaved until then would have said with pleasure. But right then came the kusta d'chiyusa, the pach echad shemen, the black box. And he said, no, I won't do it. And they took out a gun and they said, we're going to kill you. He ripped open his shirt with all of his mafia mentality, all of his brave strength that was always used against us. He ripped open his shirt and he said, kill me. They shot him. He fell onto the open Torah scroll. And the Nazis had fun with that. And instead of burning all the Jews, they left. They got their fill of whatever you want to call it, disgusting. he ended up saving through what he did. He ended up saving all these men, women, and children from being burned. And the Rav paskined, they should roll up the Torah scroll full of his blood, roll it up with him, and bury him together with the Torah scroll. So I ask you, when you see somebody like that and you want to determine that there's nothing left in him, no good can come out of him, you're wrong. On any Jew, you're wrong. You never know. He ended up being somebody who saved hundreds of men, women, and children from being murdered, and he was deemed to go straight to Olam Haba. Together with the Sefer Torah, he died al Kiddush Hashem. Says the Nesiv Shalom, there were many throughout the generations, many throughout our generations that we would have given up on, that we thought we knew and that we judged. But they ended up having such a strong kusta d'chiyusa inside of them. They ended up having so much strength inside of them that only came out when they were on the lowest level. K'mesupra al Yehudim shayu sharm gemurim, kashetzive aleim lichbar masru nafsham, Aleha Amuna, Kinis Oira, Kosta D'chiyusa Shabahem, Va'al Yedezet, Ni Oira, Yahadusam L'chayim. V'zeh gam soid b'alei tshuva b'deirenu. He says in our dar, he wrote this about 30, 40 years ago. He said this is also what's happening. Look how many b'alei tshuva there are, especially in Eretz Yisrael. Anoshim shayishikuim ba'avi avois hatuma. There were people who were immersed in the worst tumah. Kvar higiu l'matzavim she'en lahem takana l'ch'oira. They were anti-frum, anti-Judaism, anti-religious. And you would think that they reached the bottom, l'ch'oira, that there's no takana, they can't be fixed. Achadayin hoya bahem oid ma'at ve'ein rasha. They still had within them that oid ma'at, that is not a rasha. Yesha ha'oid ma'at hazeh hu begalui. Sometimes that oid ma'at, that little bit in you that is kosher and pure and holy, is revealed, but sometimes v'yeshu nister ma'oid l'fnei hiskalusoi, and sometimes it's very covered before it's revealed. It's very buried inside of you. Aval hu nimtza tamid ve'enai batal lo'elam, but it's always there, and it's never ever batal. It's never ever possible to destroy the black box. Uvay. And in this is buried the secret of salvation, to be reborn as a Jew in any matzav. Doesn't matter what you did. Doesn't matter what you are, what you think you are. You have inside the ability to be reborn. And that's what it says in Sefer HaKodesh Divrei Moshe, Al Hai Kosov, on the Pasuk. Vayishtachavu arza sheva pa'omim. Yaakov bowed down 7 times, ad gishtoi, until he reached ad echav, until he reached his brother. Shebechol ishtachava. Every time he was mavatal himself, every time Yaakov bowed to Esav, Hisir Yaakov me Esav klipa achas. He removed from Esav one of the klipas, one of the how do you say klipa? Like an uphill that surrounded him, a wall. Ad shehusru kol zayin aklipa shesayvavo, until he, by bowing to him, he removed all 7 walls that surrounded him. Ad gishtoi, until he reached ad echav, his bruderschaft, his brother. Until he reached the point of brotherly love, that was buried always in Esav, inside all of those klipos that were covering him up. And after he awakened this Nakuda inside of Esav, Esav was able to run towards Yaakov, to Kedusha, to Tahara, and he hugged him and he kissed him, and Chazal say at that moment it was real, even though Esav signed Yaakov. But at that moment it was all real. Now think about it. You know what this means? It means that these walls that were around Esav were chains that were trapping him. Inside, Esav wanted to kiss and love Yaakov, but he couldn't because of all these walls that were around him. Walls of tumah, walls of hatred, walls of jealousy, walls of problems, walls of all kinds of issues, walls of abuse, walls of trauma, walls of rejection. But we think that we have to change somebody to love us. No, we just need to reveal the love that's inside of them. And how do you do it? By saying, get out of here? Arois, shegitz, nothing will become of you? No. By bowing to them, by being mevatel ourselves to them. Each time we're mevatel ourselves, I don't think I'm better than you. I'm not better than you. There's nothing to be jealous of. You're good, and I believe you're good. I don't think I'm higher than you. You're mevatel another wall, and you're mevatel another wall, and another wall, and through that you can reach anyone, even an Esav. And we are not talking about Esavs in our dar. The biggest Jewish enemy that we have, the biggest Jew who is the biggest Jewish enemy, it's all pain. Not an Esav. He's a chelik elokam imal. Much easier than an Esav. After Matan Torah, the Chazon Ish says after Matan Torah, it's all different. He has the same chelik elokam imal goodness as you have. But there's walls, there's klipas around him. Those klipas have one way of you getting through them. To not just get love from them, but to let them be who they really are. To express the love that's deep inside of them. Vayoratz Esav, you freed me. The last wall came crumbling down. He ran to Yaakov. He didn't just like, okay, I guess I'll... No, I've been wanting to do this all along. I've been wanting to go to a shiur. I've been wanting to be close to Yiddishkeit. But I'm so angry and I'm so pained that I say bad words and I curse Yiddishkeit and I curse God, Rahman al-Itzlan, and I curse everything. That's really because I'm trapped inside. And if you speak to him, he'll tell you, no, it's not trapped. That's part of the trap. That's part of being trapped under klipas is, no, I really hate you. But inside is a kusta de chiyusa. Inside is a black box. Inside is, for sure, the pach echad shemen that is b'chaysamay shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And after it's revealed, he comes running over and he hugs you and he loves you. And I've seen this with so many kids that were previously written off. And they moved into Home Sweet Home, don't even say the word God. Don't even talk to me about Yiddishkeit. And we didn't. There was no Yiddishkeit in Home Sweet Home. And look at them. By just being nice to them, by being mishtach, mevatel ourselves, we didn't have to physically, just emotionally. I'm not better than you. I don't look down at you. I'm mevatel myself for you. We're even. We're equals. And the walls came down, and on their own, they went running to Hashem. They went running to loving Hashem, to hug Torah, and to kiss Torah, and to accept a life of Torah. I saw this with my own eyes. And this happens for each one of us on every level. That we get a little bit low, it's the same thing. You don't have to go all the way low. Every level has the kusta d'chiyusa. You feel like you're not what you should be. You're going through a month or a week, or you think for yeshiva bachar or for ben Torah or for from person, I'm falling. You don't have to fall all the way. It's a microcosm in each single level of growth.